We're going to get back to the Booster Club in a second. We're going to bring in our friend from ESPN, college football analyst, knower and doer of many things. He's climbed Mount Everest. He created Element 115, and rumor has it he's about to break through and create time travel. Our buddy Tom Luginbill. Tom, congrats on all the success.
I know. Sometimes I forget about all my accomplishments. Thanks for reeling them off there.
Yeah, no problem. But unfortunately, nobody can still turn Georgia Tech around here lately. So we got time travel, we got Mount Everest, but we got to turn Georgia Tech around. Tom, I want to start. I'm going to hit the SEC first. Going to kind of span the globe a little bit with these guys. A game that I am having a hard time kind of in my mind seeing how it's going to go is Tennessee at LSU.
Yeah.
This is just a very interesting matchup. I know Tennessee is down Burrell, a guy who's been out for a while, but you look at that depth at corner. Brian Kelly came out and said that Jaden Daniels needs to be more aggressive down the field. He's thrown no interceptions, but you're not really getting a return on that investment because you're not taking chances down the field, getting to that second progression. LSU at home in Death Valley, I don't care if it's early. Those students aren't going to go to sleep at night. They're probably going to walk straight from the bar to the game. They're going to be drinking Bloody Marys before the sun comes up and some other things as well. I just have a feeling this is going to be a high-scoring game. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's got the makings to potentially be that. You know, when I look at this type of offense that Tennessee runs, right, they want to spread the field. It's half-field reads, wide splits, get as many plays as you can. And it's a dangerous offense to prepare for because it's difficult to substitute, all right, unless the offense does, because it's going so fast you can't always get the right personnel on the field. But what I've come to see over the course of time, particularly over the college football playoff or even the BCS years, is the one thing that can neutralize these types of offenses is a defensive front that can overwhelm you and is disruptive and can get you off track. And that's the strength of LSU's defense. I mean, they returned virtually their entire two deep from last year's squad, and they have got guys that can really turn it loose. And sometimes when that happens to an offense that wants to run 90, 95 plays, you get off schedule. Instead of staying ahead of the chains on offense, you're a little bit behind the chains, and now you have to slow down. And you have to kind of regroup. And you got to make sure that you can protect and that you can run block and that you kind of get out of your comfort zone of going 100 miles an hour. And disruptive defensive fronts can do that to these style of offenses. When you get that at home and you know what that crowd's like there, I think the crowd can become a factor. If LSU is not able to have success with their defensive front, then yes, I could see this being a high-scoring game because I just think Tennessee's not a very good tackling team. They give up a lot of explosive plays. And, you know, to Brian Kelly's point with Jaden Daniels, when you watched his first 3 years at Arizona State, his freshman year was by far his best year. Then he started to regress. He also started to get very, very careless with the football, which led to turnovers. And I'm not so sure he's not sitting back now and a little bit gun shy saying, hey, all I got to do is not screw this up. Well, that's true to some degree, but you've got weapons that can get you explosives of 20-plus yards. You're at LSU for crying out loud. Let's push the ball downfield a little bit and let your guys make a play. It doesn't have to be a perfect throw all the time, but let your guys make a play because I don't think that LSU can just dink and dunk, all right, and keep pace or get into a track meet style game the way Tennessee wants to if Jaden Daniels doesn't start taking some chances.
No, I'm with you. And you know, too, as well, when you look at LSU and you look at guys like Butte and Malik Neighbors and some of the aliens they have running around, I know you do have two freshman offensive tackles that you're playing who are going to be studs. Will Campbell is going to be a star there at the left tackle.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's not like LSU has to run 4 verts every play. You just have to have the defense thinking that at any point in time you will take a vertical shot. And the thing that surprised me most is it's not even saying, all right, hey, we're going to get a post, we're going to run Poco, or we're going to run post wheel. You're going to see the safety either take the post or throw the wheel. But he hasn't thrown it deep when the play's broken down either. You know, it hadn't been something where he's scrambled out of the pocket, stopped. There's Butte streaking across the field, and you launch it. He's been a little bit nervous with the ball when the play's broken down, which I think has hurt him a lot. One of the few ways Auburn's actually been able to move the ball, especially last week against LSU, was taking shots down the field when the play broke down. Second thing, Tennessee, Auburn, and look, the defensive coordinators know this. This isn't some huge surprise, but I think Auburn kind of gave a little bit of a pathway for how to control Jaden Daniels in the pocket. You keep contained. You don't rush by him because a lot of pass rushers, those ends think, hey, it's a fast guy. I got to get there quick. Instead of working up working back inside, and when he comes down, you close like an accordion. Now it's 2nd and 11. You may not sack him for the 5-yard loss, but he's not going to take off and get it in 2nd and 4 as long as he doesn't break contain and you close up the middle there when he breaks too. I think that's a key point as well.
Yeah, you got to rush to the level of the quarterback, not past the level of the quarterback. When you rush past the level of the quarterback, they give you what we call the front door. And if it's open, Jaden Daniels is going to take it, right? Yep. So we've got to get to the level of the quarterback, and then you've got to get push in his face from your 2 tackle spots. And if you get to the level quarterback and then you convert speed to power and you start to, close the walls in, now you leave very little place for him to go. And I think that's really important. You mentioned the ability to break, contain, and then keep your eyes downfield and find a shot, find a guy. That's what guys like Drake May at North Carolina, Jordan Travis at Florida State have been so good at this year. And I think Jaden Daniels has lost some opportunities because when he takes off to run, his eyes go down and he's running. I mean, that's what he's doing. And so if he can get those eyes up and he does break contain, maybe there's an opportunity for somebody to break loose and you toss one up and make a play for 30, 40 yards.
Yeah, and real quick, Mississippi State hosting Arkansas. Arkansas is coming off of 2 very physical games. We've talked about the attrition on defense a little bit, especially in the back end. They looked really slow against Alabama whenever Alabama would break the first level, or they tried to run man early in that game and be able to load the box and stop the run a little bit. Not a great remedy when you go play a Mississippi State team that's going to do nothing but run mesh, shallow cross, give you a ton of stuff out of the air raid, modified runs, even though Mike Leach has leaned a little bit more on the run game. I think this game's going to be a little bit closer than what people think because Mississippi State, believe it or not, does struggle to stop the run a little bit, and with KJ Jefferson and those guys. But I find it hard to believe that with the way Mississippi State's playing, after the way they played against LSU, where they dropped passes and dropped the punt, I think Arkansas could be staring 0-3 down the barrel to start the SEC.
I totally agree with you. I think Mississippi State's one of the most underrated teams in college football. I think they're dangerous at any given time, and outside of probably LSU at night, that's the most difficult stadium I've ever broadcasted a game in. When you get backed up into that closed end zone with the cowbells, you can't hear yourself breathe. And I think field position plays a big role in that. You've got to get them behind the chains when they're backed up inside their own 30, 25 maybe, and that play starts rocking, and it is difficult to communicate. Then next thing you know, you have procedure penalties, you have communication issues. It's really tough to contend with, and that stadium and that team at Mississippi State feeds on that. And if we're going to assume, and I think it's fair to, that Mississippi State's going to score points, and it's kind of like the LSU Tennessee game that we referenced. If this thing turns into a track meet, who benefits? Mississippi State does,
for sure,
because that's kind of what they are offensively. And I just think Will Rogers is so good, like so accurate. And if Arkansas chooses to play a bunch of man concepts, they're going to be in trouble. I mean, they really are. I still think the formula, whether you're playing Mississippi State at home or on the road, the formula to beat Mississippi State on defense is dare them to run it. Give them a 3-man front, give them a 5-man or a low number box, drop 7 or 8, don't give up explosive plays, make them throw it underneath and come up and tackle them. And that's essentially what LSU did. And I think that if you take that approach, you put so much pressure on Mike Leach to do something he doesn't want to do, and that's hand the ball off. And force him to do it. Force him to actually hand the ball off, and I think it could be a recipe for success.
Yeah, and Conan, it puts pressure on Will Rogers. Will wants to be out there just slinging the thing, not just running.
He will do that. And he will do that. All right, Tom, here we go. Number 11, Utah at number 18, UCLA. Now, Utah is one Cam Rising goal line mistake away at Florida from beating them on the road and being 5-0. They're 4-1 right now, but they go into UCLA, who is 5-0, with a very impressive win over a good Washington team. Do you think Utah can go in and get the win here, or has Chip Kelly finally recreated a semblance of that Oregon program he had back in the past?
Well, one thing we don't have to worry about is a daunting crowd in the Rose Bowl. I don't think Utah is going to be worried about
it's sad.
any noise issues.
Tom, there's a big poetry slam going on during the game, so I don't think a lot of people are going to be there.
Yeah, I don't think Utah's been blaring music all week at practice to prepare for the environment.
They've been playing flute.
Yeah, I had Utah 2 weeks ago. I think they're a really, really good football team. And the reason why is because of how they're built. They're different than everybody else in the Pac-12 in the sense that They're about physicality, whooping you, being the bully in the bull yard or in the play yard. They're going to run the football at you. They're super efficient on offense. I do have some concerns about Brant Keithy being out. He was such an integral part of their 12 and 13 personnel, 1, 2, and 3 tight end sets. That, what type of impact will that have on play calling for Andy Ludwig, their offensive coordinator? But I look at both of these teams and how they're playing right now. And if you watch that Washington game for UCLA, that score looked close late. That game was never close. And the thing that UCLA is doing a great job of is, number one, DTR is staying healthy. That's really been the issue of his career. All right. He has not turned the ball over in 4 games through the air. All right. So they're not making mistakes. So what does that tell you about these two teams? It may not be about which team makes the most plays or plays the best football. I think it's going to be the team that makes the fewest errors. Who does something that's uncharacteristic to their nature? What if Cam Rising goes out there and has a 3 turnover day? He doesn't do that. But that could be the difference. What if DTR does the same thing? What if Zach Charbonnet fumbles? What if UCLA gives up a punt return for a touchdown or fumbles on the 2-yard line going in and Utah recovers it? Those types of plays that start to add up. And let's just say you have a 75 to 80 play game and there's 3 or 4 plays like that. That's the way I think this game will go.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, if I asked you before the season what the biggest game in the Big 12 would be the second Saturday of October, you would probably tell me the Red River Shootout. And yet here we go, a top 25 matchup with TCU at Kansas. It's been a great story on both sides right now. But Can one of these teams actually win the Big 12, Tom?
I don't think so. I really don't. I still think both of these teams haven't quite got to the meat of their schedule yet. I still think Baylor's a problem. Oklahoma State's a real problem, in my opinion. We're seeing Oklahoma reeling right now. It's going to be interesting to see what happened with Texas when Ewers back. Do they elevate? Do they continue that trend that looks so positive in the early going of the Alabama game? The reason why I say I don't think so is the bottom line is both these teams are playing really, really good, but neither of these two teams are the most talented teams in the league. And I think at the end of the year, at the end of the day, as attrition starts to mount up and you have some injuries, you start to get tired, your depth starts to get depleted a little bit, that would affect a TCU and a Kansas maybe more so than it would affect some of the other talented teams in the conference. But just as we say, with this great game, there's so few opportunities. It's not a 73-game schedule or a 29-game schedule. Any given Saturday, anything can happen. And if you catch a team at the right time and you're playing your best and they don't take you, seriously, then could you find yourself late in the season having a shot to go to the Big 12 title game? Maybe. I just don't know if the talent is there for the long haul for both of these teams.
Yeah. Leipold Aranda 2024. Get your votes in now.
All right, Lugs, we're going to go straight to Leo Maltos with a $4.99 donation. He wants to pay us to ask you a question. All right, hashtag Ask Tom.
That's a great gig.
Yeah, I know. Any advice for the first
$4.90?
Yeah.
99
in this
cents.
economy.
Hold on, in this economy.
We have something for that. Hold on.
So 3 years ago, that's
it's $248. Yeah, absolutely, sir. This is a Wendy's. All right, hashtag Ask Tom. He says, any advice for a first-time college head coaches? He says, wishing Jim Leonhard the best luck up in Wisconsin.
Be yourself. I think that's the thing. You got to be authentic. You got to be genuine. Kids know it. They feel it. They sense it. They can see through it when you're not. And I think that you also have to maybe change things up a little bit. Maybe you change the practice schedule up to do a little something that you thought, if you're a Jim Leonhard, that needed to be done that wasn't being done. I don't think you make drastic changes or drastic shifts, but put your stamp on a few things. I think oftentimes when you have moves like this, and I think this was a move that was completely unnecessary at this point. I mean, the guy's won 75% of his games, but whether it's at Arizona State or at Wisconsin right now, there's usually a reason why this has happened, right? Maybe there's a lack of accountability in the building. Maybe practice habits aren't what they should be. So there will be things that those coaches have identified that they think are important that maybe weren't addressed to the level that they would have addressed it had they been in charge. And that would be my advice: is be genuine, be authentic. And if there's some things that you feel really, really important about that this team wasn't doing to your level of expectation, those are the areas you focus on.
Love it. I need to write that down just in case they give me a call. And
Yeah, well, and you
right.
must have a dance contest at the end of your first practice.
Stomp the yard 4. All right, let's go. EB55
Stomp the yard
said, what would Illinois need to do in order to take the next step and maybe compete for a Big Ten championship?
Well, if they're targeting and kind of in the same recruiting pool with guys that are going to Iowa or Wisconsin or maybe a Purdue, maybe an Iowa State. Okay, those guys have all proven that they can compete for a conference championship. I just don't think it's the type of program that is going to be able to do it year in and year out because they're a developmental program. More than likely, they're not going to be a program that's going to go out and get play right away guys. They might get, I mean, they got a defensive end right now that's a hell of a player. He's a true freshman. He's going to be a great player, but they don't have 10 of them, right? So you're going to develop and redshirt and bring along the vast majority of your roster. And then all of a sudden, you have one of those years where you start looking down the two deep. I used to do this with Michigan State all the time, and Mark D'Antonio was there. You start looking down the two deep, and you see a lot of R's next to JR and SR, meaning redshirt junior and redshirt senior. And now all of a sudden you're throwing out a 10-win season and you're competing in the conference. And then those guys kind of all depart at the same time and you take a little step back. It's kind of the nature of those types of programs. So I think they can. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I've been to just about every place in the country. I would put Illinois' brand new football operations center up against anybody's in the country. Anyone's. Now they got things to do, with the stadium enhancements and things of that nature, but they can compete facilities wise right now. I think recruiting is tough because it's a difficult state. It's not like you have a bunch of homegrown talent all over the place. And if you do, they've generally gone to other places. But there's no question Brett Bielema has done a remarkable job and it can be done there.
Yeah, a lot more people play basketball than football in that state.
Right.
Tom, we appreciate it, man. I think it's a great answer. You talk about a guy that does that a little bit. Look at Pat Fitzgerald in Northwestern. They'll win 3 games, then 6 games, then they'll win 9 games. Like Pat Fitzgerald, the greatest coach ever, of all time ever. But at Northwestern, that new stadium they're building looks absolutely elite. It's the perfect size for them. That's a lot of smart people with a lot of smart money. Yeah, I guarantee you there's no lawsuits they lose when that thing gets built. That or they don't get any bad journalism stories written about them. But Tom, we appreciate it, my friend. As usual, excited to see you next week. And as always, the background is absolutely on point right now.
You bet, boys. We'll see you later.
Hey, if you like that content, please like and subscribe. It helps us out, and also share it with your friends.